I held the engagement ring between my molars the entire Uber ride there. No box, no pouch, just raw metal pressed against the side of my tongue like some quiet dare. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because I didn't trust myself not to change my mind if I held it in my hands. Maybe because I didn't want to feel how cold it was. Or maybe because I was already choking on something I couldn't name. The driver made small talk. I nodded at all the wrong times. My mind wasn't in the car. It was already 26 stories up, under a ceiling of string lights and curated smiles, where she was standing next to him, sipping rose like it wasn't laced with betrayal. I hadn't been invited. Not really. It was his birthday, someone from work. But I saw the name on her phone screen last week. I knew the way she smiled when she read his texts, the way she typed back fast and then left me on read. Still, when she left our apartment that night in that forest green dress she only wore for special occasions, the one she said made her feel dangerous, I knew I had to go. I arrived 47 minutes late. Deliberately. I wanted to see what she acted like when she thought I wouldn't show. I wanted the truth, even if it broke me. The rooftop was buzzing. Music, voices, polished people who looked like they belonged in a Netflix series. I didn't. I walked past the bar, past the fire pit, past the woman in red heels complimenting herself in a window's reflection. And there she was. She wasn't scanning the room for me. She wasn't looking guilty or nervous. She was laughing. Laughing with him. I watched from 10 feet away as he leaned in to whisper something, and she tilted her head like it was a secret carved just for her. She touched his wrist. He didn't flinch. Neither did she. I bit down on the ring. Not hard enough to bend it. Just enough to feel something. Then I walked straight to the table where she stood. They didn't notice me right away. Her hair was curled. Not for me. Her smile was wide. Not for me. Her whole body was glowing under that rooftop glow, and none of it was for me. I stopped in front of them. Her laughter trailed off. She turned to look at me, and just as her mouth began to form my name, I reached up, pulled the ring from my mouth, and placed it on the table, wet and glinting like something pulled from a grave. No speech. No explanation. Just the sound of it hitting the wood. She stared at it like it was a bomb. He looked at me like I was a joke, and I looked at both of them like I had just woken up. But that wasn't even the beginning of the end. That was the polite part. You want to know what happened next? What happened after I left the rooftop? How her world unraveled piece by piece. Starting with one text she didn't know I'd seen. I didn't take the elevator on the way down. Something about being trapped in a mirrored box for 26 floors felt unbearable. I needed movement. I needed stairs. I needed air thick with regret and concrete dust. Every step away from that rooftop felt like pulling thorns out of my skin. Slow, clumsy, never deep enough. By the time I reached the street, my jaw still ached from holding the ring in my mouth. I wiped it on my sleeve and shoved it deep into my coat pocket. I had no plan. No confrontation rehearsed. No dramatic gotcha moment. I didn't storm in there to expose her. I just needed her to see it. To see that I knew. To understand, in that brief second of silence, that I wasn't clueless anymore. That was all. And yet, walking down that empty sidewalk, I couldn't stop shaking. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger comes with fire. What I felt was cold. Hollow. Like I'd been robbed in my sleep by someone who knew exactly where I hid all my soft parts. I didn't go home. Instead, I went to a 24-hour diner 4 blocks away and ordered coffee I couldn't taste. I sat in a booth under flickering fluorescent lights, across from nobody, and just stared at the ring. Not at the diamond, at the underside of the band. I had paid extra to have it engraved. Still the safest place. That's what it said. Those were the words I once whispered to her when she cried herself to sleep after losing her father. When she said she didn't believe in forever. When she looked at me like I was the one person who couldn't hurt her. Funny how people never cry the same way twice. The first time, it was grief. The next time, well, you'll see. After maybe an hour of sitting there, my phone buzzed. It was her. 3 messages in a row. Rena, where are you? Rena, what was that? Rena, can we talk? Please. I didn't reply, but I did something I had never done before. Something I had promised myself I wouldn't become. That guy. I opened the phone backup app once secretly installed 6 months ago. She never knew. It auto-synced her gallery to a shared cloud folder. I had access to it in case she ever lost her phone. I told myself it was for safety. In reality, it was for nights like this. Nights when my gut twisted, but I had no proof. Nights when instinct was louder than trust. I hadn't checked it in months. I was too afraid of what I might find. But tonight I looked, and that's when the air left my lungs. There, in the synced folder, were photos from earlier that same week. Hotel room, champagne, 2 glasses, her legs, crossed, in that same green dress. Another photo, his wrist, same watch I saw on the rooftop, holding a bottle of wine in the mirror's reflection. Then came the video, only 14 seconds long. I didn't even press play. The thumbnail was enough. It was her, whispering something in his ear, her hand on his chest, her face lit with a kind of joy I hadn't seen in over a year. And in that moment, sitting in a booth that reeked of burnt eggs and bleach, I felt something quietly snap inside me. Not rage, not heartbreak, something worse. I felt calm, calmer than I should have, because now I had something more than hurt. I had leverage. You see, I'm not the dramatic type. I don't scream. I don't break things. I don't beg. But I do plan. I listen. I remember. And she had forgotten something very, very important. Something I hadn't even told her I knew. Something that could turn her entire carefully curated world inside out, if I decided to. She thought placing the ring on the table was the end. It was just the warning shot. What came next? She never saw it coming. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even pretend to. I walked the streets until the city turned ghostly, and the only thing louder than my footsteps was the sound of my own name echoing in my head. Lowell. I used to hate the way she said it. All soft and sugar-coated, like she was patting me on the head for being a good boy. But now I missed it. I missed it like you miss a bruise after it heals. At least when it was there, you had something to point to. I went back to our apartment just before sunrise. Not because I wanted to see her, but because I knew she'd be asleep. I wanted to walk through that door one last time without a war breaking out. I needed to stand inside what used to be our home before it became the battleground it was destined to become. It was quiet. She was in bed, turned to the wall, still in her dress, makeup smudged like a story she forgot to finish. I didn't wake her. I just looked around the room. The framed picture of us in Maine, the dusty candles she never lit, the books I bought her that she never opened. Then I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and pulled out my old black notebook from the drawer under the microwave. She never knew I kept it there. She never cared to look. I opened to a page marked with a torn movie ticket from last year. That ticket was from Seattle. Here's what she forgot. I knew. Not about Chris, the rooftop guy. No, he was new. Disposable. But Seattle? That was the real secret. A conference she said was canceled. A weekend she claimed she spent at her sister's. But I had followed her then. Not physically. I followed the breadcrumbs. The lift receipt accidentally emailed to me. The hotel confirmation she left printed in the office printer. The 2 dinners charged to our joint card, for 2 people, on 2 separate nights. Back then, I told myself not to say anything. That maybe it was just work. Maybe I'd become that kind of man, paranoid, suspicious, digging for answers I didn't want to find. So I let it go, but I didn't forget. And I kept records. Notes. Dates. Names. The man in Seattle? He wasn't just a fling. He was married. To someone who, according to a little online digging, had no idea her husband ever consulted in Seattle that weekend. So I made a decision, one I never thought I was capable of. I opened my laptop. I found her, the wife. Her name was Annette Baines. She ran a handmade soap business out of Vermont. 3 kids. Still used a Yahoo email address. Her Instagram was full of sunrises and banana bread and the kind of fragile warmth that gets people blindsided. And I wrote her a message. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. You don't know me, but I think you should see these photos. Your husband spent a weekend in Seattle with someone named Rena. I thought you deserved to know before I go public. I attached 3 screenshots. No names. No location tags. Just enough proof to crack the shell. I didn't send it. Not yet. Instead, I saved it to drafts and backed it up on a flash drive I'd leave at my brother's house the next day. Because this wasn't just about revenge. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I was doing it because I finally understood something. Rena didn't cheat out of passion. She cheated out of pattern. She needed to be adored by anyone, everyone. And the second I became familiar, I stopped being interesting. I was just background music to her highlight reel. And people like that, they don't stop. They escalate. And I wasn't going to sit quietly while she destroyed people in the dark and smiled like a saint in the daylight. So I waited. That morning, she finally woke up. Barefoot in the hallway, mascara streaked, face pale. She didn't say good morning. She didn't say sorry. She said, "Why didn't you answer my texts?" I looked at her like she was a stranger who had wandered into my life by accident. "I was deciding what kind of man I want to be," I said. She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said slowly, "you still have no idea what I know." She stared at me like I'd spoken in a language she never learned. And that scared her more than anything. And I swear, for just a second, her hands trembled. Because for once, I wasn't crying. For once, she wasn't the one with the upper hand. What came next would change everything. For her, for me, and for the man she thought would keep her secrets. But secrets, I've learned, rot in silence. And I was done being quiet. It took her exactly 2.5 days to crack. That's how long she tried to pretend we were fine. She tiptoed around the apartment like it was a museum filled with explosives. She cooked eggs she never ate, asked me if I slept okay, scrolled Instagram like she didn't care if I was watching, which, of course, meant she did. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse. I just existed. Quiet, present, observing. That silence. It was the loudest thing in the room. See, people like Rena are used to controlling the temperature. She thrived in chaos, but only if she was the one setting the fire. My calm unnerved her. She didn't know what it meant, and that terrified her. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't planning revenge. Not really. I was giving her the opportunity to collapse under the weight of her own secrets, and she was doing a great job of it. She started closing the bathroom door even when she was brushing her teeth. She changed her phone's password twice in 1 week. She began offering up information I never asked for. Where she went, who she saw, what she bought. Every word had the over-polished shine of someone rehearsing truth in the mirror. And all I had to do was nod. The ring was still on the kitchen counter. Neither of us moved it. It sat there like a monument, a silent little gravestone for everything we didn't say out loud. Every time she passed it, her eyes flicked toward it like it might explode. On the third morning, she tried something bold. Or stupid. Maybe both. She came into the living room wearing the sweatshirt I loved, the navy one with the stretched cuffs and the tiny bleach stain near the hem. She never wore it before. Said it was too guyish. But now she was wearing it like a peace offering, like slipping into my clothes could rewind what she did. She curled up beside me on the couch. "Remember that time in Maine?" she asked suddenly, unprompted. "When we got stuck in that thunderstorm and ended up in that random roadside diner?" I didn't answer. She laughed. Not her usual careless laugh. This one was dry, cracked at the edges. "We were soaked, and you ordered pancakes at 10 p.m. like a psychopath." I kept scrolling. She waited for a moment, then said it, soft, like she was scared of the words. "You haven't looked at me the same since that party." I still didn't say anything, because she was right. And more importantly, I wasn't ready to let her off the hook. The truth is, I wanted her to spiral. I wanted her to feel what I had felt for months, second-guessed, dismissed, slowly erased. And nothing did that better than uncertainty. That night, I logged into the backup cloud again, just to see. And sure enough, there was a new photo, uploaded automatically. It was a selfie, in the bathroom at work. Her smile was tight. Not fake exactly, but performative. The way you smile when you know someone might be watching. That's when I knew she had realized I still had access. She didn't say it. Of course not. But that photo, it wasn't for her. It was for me. A little breadcrumb of control. But she had made a mistake. She forgot the cardinal rule of manipulation. If you flinch first, you lose. And she had flinched. So I pulled out my notebook again. Not the Seattle pages this time, a different one. The Chris page. I had started a quiet list. Not just names, but details. Habits. Patterns. The night of the rooftop, I remembered Chris had a subtle tattoo on the inside of his left wrist. Looked like a date in Roman numerals. I hadn't thought much of it until I searched his name on LinkedIn and cross-referenced photos with tagged friends. Found his fiancée. They were getting married in 2 months. Suddenly, Rena wasn't just someone's mistress. She was someone's bullet. And the clock was ticking. I didn't have to expose her yet. I didn't even have to say a word. All I had to do was stand very, very still and let the walls finish closing in. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. Rena had stepped out onto the balcony for her usual late work call. But this time, she forgot to close the sliding door all the way. It was raining. Soft, steady. One of those delicate autumn showers that sounds like static against glass. I was sitting on the floor of the hallway, tying my boots, ready to leave the apartment just so I wouldn't have to look at her anymore. But then I heard it. Her voice, flat, controlled, the way it always got when she was lying to someone important. "I don't know how he found out," she whispered sharply. "No, he hasn't said anything directly. He's just different." There was a pause. Whoever was on the other end didn't sound calm. She lowered her voice, but I still caught it. "I think someone told him about Seattle. But I don't know who. Or how." She was shaking now. I could hear it in her breath. "No, I haven't told Chris." "Are you insane? If he finds out I said anything to his fiancée." Another pause. And then she said something that made my spine go rigid. "I didn't even send that video. He must have taken it from my phone or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's already out there. And if it lands in the wrong inbox, we're both screwed." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I let the silence wrap around me like a noose. She wasn't talking about me. She wasn't afraid of me anymore. She was afraid of someone else. And that meant something had already started moving without me lifting a finger. Later that night, after she fell asleep, curled up on the couch with one of those fake documentaries playing in the background to drown out her own guilt, I opened the cloud again. There was a new file, but not a photo, an email, a draft, from her account, to Chris's fiancée, unsent. The subject line simply read, "You deserve the truth." There was no body text yet, just the shell of a confession, or maybe a preemptive apology. Either way, it meant only one thing. She was panicking. And when people panic, they get sloppy, which is exactly what happened the next morning. She left her iPad open on the counter. Logged in. I wasn't even snooping. I just walked into the kitchen, saw it glowing, and something in me paused. There was a message thread open. Not texts. Instagram DMs. From an account with no photo. No name. Just it burned back. One message, sent the night before. "You should probably tell the truth before someone else does." My heart started pounding, but not from fear. From possibility. Because I hadn't sent that message. I hadn't contacted Chris's fiancée. I hadn't forwarded the videos. I hadn't posted anything. I was still playing quiet. Still biding my time. So who the hell was it burnbacked? Was it someone from her past? One of the other people she stepped on? Someone from Seattle? Or worse, someone I didn't even know about? I looked over at Rena, still asleep, still pretending she could close her eyes and escape consequences. And in that moment, I realized something brutal. I wasn't the only one she'd betrayed. There were others, maybe more than I could count, and one of them had just lit a fuse. The next day, the leaks started. Quiet ones, like tiny cracks in the ice. Chris didn't show up to work. Rena got a call from her manager. Long tense. She left the room halfway through, came back with trembling hands and fake calm. Said it was just internal stuff and some miscommunication on the campaign metrics. But I knew the look of someone whose entire career had just tilted. That afternoon, she asked me if I wanted to talk. I said no. And then she cried. Not because she missed me, because something, or someone, out there was pulling her threads loose, and she didn't know where it would stop. But I did. It wasn't going to stop. Not yet. Because every person she lied to, every person she hurt, they were waking up now. And none of them were as quiet as I'd been. By the end of that week, the mask started slipping in front of people who weren't me. She was snapping at coworkers on speakerphone, ignoring calls, then panicking when they didn't call back. She opened wine at 3 p.m. and laughed it off like a joke, but I noticed the bottle was gone by dinner. She started applying makeup just to sit on the couch. Not for me, for control, for image. Because if her lips were lined and her brows were clean, maybe no one would see the cracks behind her teeth. I watched her play this game like she had rehearsed it. The innocent girlfriend with a strained smile, the high-functioning professional managing a sudden work crisis, the poor woman whose boyfriend was emotionally distant and making things weird lately. That last one, that's where it started getting dangerous. Because the moment she realized I wasn't going to lash out, wasn't going to scream or accuse or dump her on the sidewalk in front of a dozen witnesses, she did what people like her always do. She tried to rewrite the story before it could be told. She went to her best friend, Hannah, a woman I used to trust. Someone who'd stayed at our apartment during her divorce, cried on my shoulder while I reheated soup and told her she deserved better. That same woman invited me to lunch. Out of nowhere. "We should catch up," she texted. "Just us." I went. I had to. We sat across from each other at a booth too small for people pretending to be casual. Her smile was off. Her eyes kept flicking to the side, like she was rehearsing something. I let her talk. She danced around the topic, carefully, like it might explode if she touched it directly. She said Rena had been under pressure, that she felt unseen lately, that she was worried about me, about my behavior. And then, after circling long enough to make me nauseous, she dropped it. She told me you've been not yourself. Distant. Checking her phone. Making threats. Threats. I didn't laugh. I wanted to. But it wasn't funny. It was strategy. Rena had planted the seed. Framed herself as the victim. She was trying to get ahead of whatever fallout she thought was coming. Because that's how she survives. She poisons the ground before anyone else can plant the truth. But here's the part she miscalculated. She assumed I was still playing defense. I wasn't. I left that lunch without reacting. I thanked Hannah, smiled, told her I appreciated the concern. Then I went straight home, walked past Rena in the kitchen, and for the first time in weeks, I let her see me smile. Not fake, not forced, something colder. She flinched. That night, I opened the draft to Annette, the wife from Seattle. I finished it, but I didn't send it yet, because I wasn't done watching Rena squirm. Instead, I did something else. I uploaded a private video to a file hosting service. No title, no description, no metadata. Just one clip, 47 seconds long, from her camera roll, from Seattle. Her voice, his hand, a reflection in the window that showed everything. Then I sent an anonymous link to one person only, Chris, to his work email. No note, no subject, just the link. And then I waited. It didn't take long. The next morning, Rena's phone rang at 6:02 a.m. She bolted upright in bed like someone had poured boiling water across her dreams. She answered it in the bathroom. I heard pacing, then yelling, then silence. When she came out, her face looked hollowed, like something inside her had been removed overnight. She didn't look at me. She just walked to the kitchen, grabbed her keys, and left without saying a word. Later that day, I checked her Instagram. She'd archived almost every post with him in it. And one of her coworkers, the same guy who used to comment flame emojis on her stories, had unfollowed her completely. The narrative was shifting, but I wasn't even close to finished, because she hadn't lost her career yet. But she was about to. By the following Monday, she was already coming apart. Not like a building collapsing, but like glass cracking under pressure you can't see until it shatters. She was still showing up to work, still posting curated brunches on her stories, still tossing on that practiced, glossy smile. But behind her eyes, I could see it. Fear. She wasn't controlling the story anymore. I stayed quiet. I still hadn't raised my voice once. No screaming. No ultimatums. Just silence and data. While she panicked about what I might do next, I made coffee. While she double-checked her call logs, I folded laundry. And while she rehearsed half apologies in the mirror for conversations that hadn't happened yet, I was already planning something irreversible. She never understood that her reputation wasn't made of steel. It was glass, all shine and reflection, but fragile under the right heat. And I was done keeping her warm. So I made a move. Not through confrontation. Through coordination. There was a shared Slack workspace she used for freelance marketing clients, separate from her day job. She never talked about it much, but once, over wine and sushi, she bragged that it paid her rent for 3 months straight during the pandemic. I remembered the name, remembered the logo, and remembered the name of the client she hated, a nonprofit group she said was too high maintenance and emotionally needy. I looked them up, found their Instagram, noticed a recent post featuring a quote, something Rena had written in a proposal 6 months ago. She never got credit, but I remembered the wording exactly because I had helped her edit it that night while she fell asleep on the couch. So I messaged them. I didn't accuse. I asked a question. Hey, just wondering, did Rena ever get final approval for that campaign line? Just curious, because she mentioned having second thoughts about using it for you guys while she was running a separate pitch for a health startup. Technically true. Technically not slander. But enough to plant doubt. They replied. Short. Cold. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. I didn't need a response beyond that. A day later, she came home like a storm cloud wearing lipstick. Slammed the door. Didn't even say hi. She dropped her bag on the floor and walked straight into the kitchen, pacing, muttering, opening the fridge just to close it. Then she finally spoke. They froze my freelance account. I looked up from the book I wasn't reading. What? Freelance Lowell. My actual income. They paused the contract and said there's been a client-side concern. Do you know anything about that? I didn't say a word. I didn't have to, because now she was unraveling publicly. People she worked with were pulling away. Her Slack messages were going unread. One of her group chats, the one with the artsy clients she used to brag about, had quietly removed her. She tried to pass it off as normal churn, but I saw the panic in her hands when she poured her second glass of wine before 2 p.m. Later that night, after she fell asleep in the clothes she wore to work, I opened my email. There it was. A message from Annette, Chris's fiancée. Subject line, "Thank you." No body text. Just a single screenshot. It was a forwarded message Rena had sent to Chris weeks ago, one I'd never seen. A photo. Her in a hotel bed. Captioned, "You make me feel real again." No date. No timestamp. But now it had been sent to everyone. A minute later, Annette messaged again. I didn't just leave him. I sent it to her employer too. You're not the only one she used. I won't be quiet either. I stared at the screen. For the first time in this whole nightmare, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like I wasn't alone. The next morning, Rena's world finally cracked. She came home early, shoulders hunched, keys shaking in her hand. She didn't even close the door behind her, just stood there, looking at me like a child who lost her mother in a grocery store. "They let me go," she whispered. I didn't blink. Her voice trembled. "They said I violated company policy, that they reviewed some things. Something was flagged. I don't even know what that means." Then came the tears. Real this time. Not because she was sorry, but because she had been seen. Fully, finally, and the world around her had stopped clapping. She collapsed onto the floor like a fallen statue, still trying to hold her image together with broken fingers. "I can fix this," she whispered. And for the first time, I laughed. Soft. Hollow. The kind of laugh you let out when the pain's been processed, labeled, and stored. "Fix what?" I asked. But I already knew. She wasn't trying to fix the relationship. She was trying to fix me. Rebuild the version of me who forgave, who stayed, who swallowed guilt like vitamins and called it love. But that man was gone. And all that was left was someone with nothing more to lose, and one final card left to play. She cried on the floor for a long time. Long enough for the sun to slip behind the buildings outside our apartment window. Long enough for the shadows to change shape and make the walls feel closer than they were. I sat at the dining table and let it happen, not out of cruelty, but because I had nothing left to give her. No words. No explanations. No space for another manipulation to crawl its way into my chest and pretend to be forgiveness. She kept saying the same thing. I didn't mean for this to happen. Over and over. Like it was a spell that might turn the clock back if she said it enough times. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. Later that night, while she was curled on the couch, phone face down and eyes swollen shut, I packed a bag. Not out of drama. Just one duffel, clothes, laptop, notebook, ring still in its velvet box. I didn't leave a note. She didn't need one. I walked out at midnight. The streets were quiet. A kind of peace I hadn't felt in months. Maybe years. I stayed with my brother for a while. Helped him renovate the back room he never used. Took long walks without checking my phone. Learned to cook real food again. I started sleeping through the night. Not because I was trying to move on, but because my body finally believed it was safe to rest. A few weeks later, I got a message. Not from her. From Annette. Just one sentence. "It gets better. You'll see." And somehow I did. I never went public with the photos. Never exposed the full depth of what she did. I didn't have to. She'd already burned the bridges herself. I heard from mutual friends that she moved back in with her mother. That she's taking a break from work and trying to focus on healing. Good. I hope she does. Because healing isn't just for the people who were wronged. It's also for the people who did the damage, if they're willing to sit with it. And maybe one day, she will. Maybe she'll stop performing and start repairing. But me? I'm already there. I changed my number. Got a new apartment. One with no shared memories clinging to the walls. I bought myself a new coat. Took the ring and sold it. Used the money to buy a used guitar and a plane ticket to somewhere I'd never been. I'm not sure where I'm going yet. But for once, I don't feel like I'm running away. I feel like I'm running towards something. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been where I was, let me say this. You don't need to burn the world down to heal. You just have to stop handing your matches to someone who never deserved your fire. I didn't win. I didn't destroy her. I walked away. And somehow, that was the most powerful thing I ever did.